Hey guys, welcome to You the Boss podcast, episode 51. Happy International Women's Month. I always love to get started and, just highlight different women that are doing the work, doing the things in the world. So today is no different. Today we are speaking with Bianca Alba. She is a proud Latina and first generation college graduate. She was born in the heart of South America in Cochabamba, Bolivia, and is the oldest of four sisters. Bianca holds a bachelor's and master's degree in public health. Despite many years of schooling, Bianca has managed to pay off all of her student loans and feels liberated by being debt free. She is the voice and creator of This Latina Travels, which is a podcast and travel blog through the eyes of a first generation Latina traveler slash college graduate sharing all of her travel experiences firsthand. As a little girl living in a single parent household, trips and vacations were just a dream and felt unreachable. This Latina Travels is more than just Bianca telling you about her experiences, but is a true reflection that dreams can become a reality. To date, Bianca has traveled to 6 of the 7 continents in the world, and her goal is to encourage and support women who look like her to travel the world. You will see in the show notes the link to her socials, the link to her website, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Hi, Bianca. Welcome to You the Boss podcast.
Hi, Pam. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to have you on the show today. So, as you know, a little bit here on You the Boss, we like to kind of jump right in. Give us a little bit about you, your background, and kind of how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. Well, my name is Bianca Alba, and I'm a proud first gen Latina born in Cochabamba, Bolivia, which is the heart of South America. I immigrated to this country of the United States when I was a baby, so 6 months to be exact, and grew up in the DMV area, which is the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, so specifically Northern Virginia. And I grew up and went to college and lived most of my life in that area until I finished my master's degree in public health. So I'm a proud first gen as well. And I started my
Mm.
career in public health with CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And so, right after my master's degree, I was stationed in New Mexico. So, I was working with the health department there. So, complete different time zone, complete different area of the world. And then from there, I was brought here to Puerto Rico, where I currently reside and have called this beautiful island home for about 8 years. So that's a little bit like I guess of my background story. And then I'm actually also the founder and creator of This Latina Travels, which is a travel podcast through the eyes of a proud first gen. And I started This Latina Travels as kind of like a scapegoat from my 9 to 5, thinking if one or two people listen to my story, I'll be a happy camper. But I really just wanted to motivate more women who look like us, especially Latina women, to travel the
Mhm.
world because I was tired of going to all these different beautiful countries and being the only female Latina who looked like me. Like everyone else was retired or older or white. And I was like, there must be a reason why Latinas are not traveling or what it is. So that's why I started also my platform. And I'm over here just trying to push more of us to travel the world.
Well, I have to out of the gate say it's so comforting to be speaking to a fellow Latina. I've spoken to a few Latinas here on the podcast, and that is like my mission with this podcast is to put the microphone more in the voices that sound like us, right? Because so often we talk about wanting to see similar faces or feeling that like just the comfort. It's kind of like a cup of coffee or tea if you drink
Mhm.
tea when like you go to someone's house and they offer you a cup of coffee and you're like, yeah, because it gives you like that warmth. That's kind of what that does for me. And I also want to say congratulations on being first gen in college. I have a little bit of a different story when it comes to that because my I have 3 brothers that are significantly older than me, and one of them went to college, but he wasn't born here. He was
Mhm.
born in the Dominican Republic, and then he came here, they were citizens, etcetera. So, like, I'm technically first generation as far as like the two of us that were born here in the States, but like, so it's always so fun to hear that story of a first gen because it's real, right? Like it's rooted in you.
Yeah.
So, and then just, covering all bases of like talking about this Latina travels and that kind of thing. I know that you said that you started it because you've been to different places and not everyone looked like you. So, how did like how did the idea come to you? I always like the story. Like, were you just like
Mhm.
sitting in a coffee shop one day and you were just like, I should do this thing? Like, how did that fully come to you?
Yeah, so it was like I said, during the pandemic. So I was working as a first responder with CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and literally I was eating, dreaming, sleeping, waking up, thinking of COVID because I was on these deployments all over the country, working like 80-hour weeks. So for my own
Wow.
personal peace, like I was like, I need to do something that's not related to COVID. And so I had already like documented. I'm a big writer and I love like journaling. So I already had so many things in my journal about my travels. I had posted things back then, like Facebook was like really, really big. I'm aging myself, but I'm
Mhm.
a proud millennial. And so I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I need to make this something. And thankfully, I have a really good like sorry sister of mine who lives on the island, and we were just chit chatting. It was when I was back from one of these deployments. I was like, I need to do something that's not COVID related. And she's like, well, you have so many good stories. Why don't you start a podcast? And she was like, and I was like, oh my God, if I hire you, would you be my editor? Would you like help me like do my cover? Because I was like, I don't have the energy to do all this. And I think that was like
Mhm.
the first thing that, like, I put in my head. I'm like, I would love to start a podcast, and everybody, I think, was starting podcasts during the COVID, but I was like, "But I don't have the
Mhm.
time." I was like, I'll pay, I'll outsource easily." And so, and that's how it sprung. It sprung from just an idea of, like, let's just put something together and make it happen, and then from there on, like, one episode led to another, and then led to another, and then I was like, "Wow, people are really listening," and then I changed, like, my platform, and added like, okay, I need to invest in a website and a blog and all that good stuff. But it really was just like a way to like get out of my my 9 to 5 to help me like
Mhm.
mentally as well, because it was heavy times. Like I think, especially as first gen, like we are put in this like space that you have to do everything right, especially being the first, or you need to work hard and not take days off. And I think I burnt myself out so much during this my first career because it was kind of like that mindset that like, oh, you should be very grateful that you have work, or you should be very grateful that you're making a good salary job. But at the end of the day, like all that money and a good career doesn't matter if you're not mentally okay. And that's what like
Mhm.
really embraced me to push and to do something that was gonna be part of my purpose. And so that's literally how TLT, this Latina travel started.
I just I'm like in awe of like speaking to you, because I see you on Instagram, right? And I feel like it's important to say that. I don't say that to you like as a quote unquote fan, but I see you as like a human being, It's so interesting to first of all put like really live, put the voice and the face together, but also to hear your story and share it with others. It's so important. I know that you said that you work or have worked for the CDC. I'm not I think you're still working with them. And, right now, as it was even 5 years ago, we're in just such a different space with so many different things, and for you to have a place for you to have that creative outlet, but also, to monetize it and also have it reward you in multiple ways. I think that's so great, and it's very brave of you, so I wanna say congratulations because that's a really big deal. Um, Kinda switching it a little bit, so I know that you're in a career standpoint, right?
Mhm.
So, has there been any point where your career maybe collided with your passion, or maybe not so much collided, but like maybe you learned something in your career that you've brought towards your passion, or your passion and you brought it to your career? Could you give us like a little insight to that?
Sure. Yeah. So this leads to the segue. Like I actually did change agency, so I don't work for CDC anymore. So I work for a different federal agency, and that story
Hmm.
is literally the response to what he just answered. Like I had to choose myself. And I had to do what was best for my career, for my own mental sanity. And so I started hopping and I found a job that literally has brought me, a life balance, career where I can juggle not only, my passion project, but I can also, have a job and have an angel investor job. And what do I mean by that? Like that my angel investor job is what provides me my finances. It provides me, like I don't see it as like it hindering me or like stopping me from living in my purpose, because at the end of the day, I studied public health. Like my, oath was to serve like the community, to serve my people or community. And so I am passionate about what I do within my career. Like I love the fact that I work for one of the, the best like health organizations at this time right now. Like there's a lot with the federal government, me and you both
Hmm.
know, but I still
Hmm.
am proud. I am proud because I know so many people who look like me who are doing so good within the federal government, who are scientists, brilliant doctors also. So it's like I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I also know that in order to build of course like my passion project, I need money. And so for now,
Hmm.
like, I have to, juggle and balance both, and thankfully I can. I'm very blessed, and that's something that I don't take for granted, that I can do both, and find the time. I'm also, not a mom and I think that's also a huge beautiful job. And so it's like, I can balance my time to do things that not a lot of other people can. But I also believe that where there's a will, there's a way. And so I feel like,
Hmm.
especially us as women, like, I think about our moms or our, our ancestors, and how like they did literally things that we never could have imagined. Like my mom left Bolivia when she was 17 and immigrated to this country,
Wow.
not knowing any like nobody, knowing nobody first, knowing like not the language, not the currency, nothing. Hopped on a plane with me and like no phones or nothing, no social media. Like so if like my mother could do that, I could for sure balance a 9 to 5 and build like my platform on the side. So those are things that I just keep in the back of my mind.
Wow. You made so many good points, but definitely that, I guess that groundbreaking realization that the women in our lives, our ancestors, that it's just so close, that it is such essentially just such a generation apart, to say like, yeah, my mom hopped on a plane and came here and didn't know anyone, didn't know the language, and it is just so incredible to know that you're doing great work both in your passion and your career, and it's also great that you are passionate about both, because sometimes people are like, I started this because I wanted to get out of my job, and it's like
Hmm.
you still love what you're doing, and I think that's great, but it's also such a great realization to say, my mom got on this plane to change my life,
Hmm.
so I owe it to not just that, but I owe it to myself to continue to change what she started to change for me, and that's just so important, especially for us Latina women. I think sometimes the world sees us as the good music, the good food, the oh, like the wonderful beaches at the resorts at your country, or the holidays, and I love this about your country and I love that about your country, and it's very easy to forget that we are still human beings. We're navigating our feet in two different places, and it's just again, it's just so great to see what you're doing and putting yourself out there, you know? So, what's something that you're working on right now? Maybe that you're like excited about, or you've already started sharing. Like I know you got engaged in the recent months, which congratulations. I think that's
Thank
awesome.
you. Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, I got two things also. I'm very, as you said, I'm an open book on my social media. I believe having a platform essential and to use it in every form. So yes, I got engaged. So I'm currently in the wedding planning
Hey.
stage. If God willing, this week we'll be signing our contract for our venue here in Puerto Rico. And I just found
Yay.
the perfect wedding planner. So I'm so excited to invest in her too. Because as much as I love planning travels and travel guides, I do not want to plan my wedding. So I was like, I
That
will
is
invest.
acceptable.
Yeah, I was like, I will invest in a wedding planner. And so thankfully my fiance and I agreed to the individual's, price and everything that she
Mhm.
offers. So I'm super excited. And she's local. So I wanted that's also why I wanted to get married here in Puerto Rico because I wanted to give back to the community and really just all support all local vendors, local, just everything. So yeah, so that's in personal life and I guess professional life. I'm building this Latina Travels every single day, and I'm super excited that next month I'm actually hosting my first big group here in Puerto Rico. So I am teaming up, and this is like exclusive information to your audience because I haven't announced it because I'm really excited and I'm really like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But I'm hosting 25 students from Penn State to come here to Puerto Rico for alternative spring break.
Wow.
And I am super grateful for the individuals that, decided to work with me. And during this week, we are going to be doing a lot of cultural competencies like education. We're going to be doing community service. Community service is huge to me. So I'm excited to take them to like the different shelters on the island, the different coffee farms. We're gonna have a plenero workshop. So it's just gonna be a full
Oh.
week of just taking in so much about the Borinquen culture. And I'm just excited. I'm excited that, the person that is leading like the tours, she's Boricua from here, a PhD, like, baddie and all the
Wow.
different companies that I'm working with. So I am just thrilled to be able to do this. And I know that at the end of the day, this is going to bring even more things. So it's just kind of like, I'm getting my foot wet, but I know it's going to bring a lot of opportunities. And I'm just excited for all these students and myself to learn so much because it's complete different areas that we're visiting in the South. So that's the other cool thing that it's going to be in the different areas, not in the San Juan metro area.
Oh, well, that is incredible. So you guys heard it here first. She is hosting some students from Penn State, and I think you blew my mind with like all the different things that you said because my husband is actually Puerto Rican. I'm Dominican, and even though people are always like, "Oh, you guys are neighbors," I'm like, we're in it's still two different islands. It's still two different
Yes,
worlds.
yes.
And we went to Puerto Rico on our honeymoon, and it was my first time there, and I fell in love with
Mhm.
the culture, with the community, and hearing how passionate you are about the community service and just hearing how passionate you are about these students that you're gonna be hosting, it's just it really warms my heart because we forget that it's not just the music, it's not just the food, there's
Mhm.
real people, there's real communities. And you mentioned the south of the island, that's actually where my husband is from, where his family is from. And again, like I know nothing about that area. Like the last time he went to the southern part of the island, he was like 11, so it's great that you're bringing this space to a community and that you are getting your feet wet and that I know soon enough you're going to like just be drenched in doing this and creating this with your brand and you just leading things on. So,
So- Oop, did I
I could
lose
still
you?
hear you. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe maybe necessarily like with the hosting that you're going to be doing or maybe even in your career, what's something that more of like a recent challenge, which I'm preaching to the choir here, right? So I'm sure you could probably like flip open a book and be like, well, let's choose the one for today. But what's a recent challenge maybe that you felt like you faced and whether you're still in it, overcoming it, or you've already surpassed it that you would wanna share with the listeners?
Oh yeah, I think it's very heavy with everything that's going on in our country currently. But I just want to say, just breaking those generational curses. And what I mean by that exactly is, growing up, it was a very hard reality to know that, we didn't have money, and
Mhm.
that my parents fought all the time. And it was, you know, struggling just to make means work. And I held so much anger throughout like my high school career, and through even college. And it wasn't until like, when I became a professional and invested in therapy and mental health
Mhm.
care and stuff, that I realized like, oh wow, like, it's okay not to be okay. And and it's okay that you're learning about yourself, you're learning about your upbringing and why things were done certain ways, but to be able to acknowledge that stuff and break it and break that cycle. And not only just like in that sense, but financially too. I am so proud that I'm in a stage in my life and that I can provide for my mom, and that I can build generational wealth. We just signed her estate and will planning, and that was all because I initiated that.
Wow.
And it was such a beautiful feeling. I think I cried out of all my sisters. I'm the oldest of four, but I cried because I was like, I did that. I'm doing this. I'm breaking these generational cycles. And, my fiance, he's white American from Florida. So, they have all
Mhm.
this already established. And it's a beautiful thing to know, like, his parents, his grandparents, they all have, generational wealth. And I'm just like, if they can do it, we can too. Like the amount of money that
Mhm.
Latinos invest in travel and just it's just mind blowing. So I'm like, we have the resources. We just have never been taught to use, high yield saving accounts or budgeting
Mhm.
tools, or because we're always on this like survival mode. But we need to change and we need to start. So I would say, to answer like your question about, just what has been my biggest challenge is just like overcoming these barriers and being the first in my family to say it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to seek help, therapy. It's okay to to realize like there was financial trauma, there was mental trauma, but what am I going to do about it? Because it's gonna
Mhm.
end here. And just go from there.
Well, that's amazing, and I just wanna point out a couple of things that you said that I wanna reiterate, like, here on You the Boss, we are big advocates for therapy. I I'm gonna say it's like a joke that I have with my friends, but it's a very serious joke when I say that everyone at one point or another should go to therapy, but very much especially from the Latin community because you're right. There's so many things that because our parents are in survival mode the entire time that they're raising us, they may not have the time to talk to us about finances or even know themselves about finances.
Mhm.
They're living sometimes paycheck to paycheck. You know, my dad used to say, um, "Hay que dejar de beber romo hoy." Like I can't drink today so that we can buy, the shoes that you need for school. Meanwhile, my father didn't drink. Like after I was born, he didn't drink anything, but it was just the saying of like,
Same.
okay, gotta let go here to put in there. And it's just so much of that is rooted in that survival mode. And your acknowledgement of that and being able to give back to your mom, I know that that feels like such an honor for you
Mhm.
because just just being able to break that generational curse, it's just so amazing that you're able to not just do it, but also just say to other people, which I think is probably the key point of it all, is to say to other people, "You can too." And I
Mhm.
think that that's boss behavior, honestly, like, to be able to not only climb yourself out of something, but to lift others up. That is just
Mm.
such incredible work, and I'm just I feel so lucky to, like, be talking to you and having that conversation, because we're rubbing the right shoulders, right? We're in the right rooms,
Yes.
we're doing the things,
Yes.
we're doing the work, right?
Yes.
So,
100%.
I have a question for you, and of course, I have a question for you, right? Um,
I was like, I have
but
an
what
answer.
but what advice what advice would you give to someone that is starting out? Maybe they're first generation, maybe they were born here, let's say, and they have a passport and maybe they've never traveled outside of like maybe going to their one country, let's say Dominican Republic or Mexico,
Mhm,
and they want to start traveling. What would be like your first like basics of things for them to get started in traveling and seeing the world and those kinds of things?
mhm. I say the first thing that anybody, whether you're first or you're an advanced traveler, you should have, your bucket list of things that you want to do in your lifetime.
Yes.
Just because I feel like when you have like something written or concrete, like like what kind of like what you're looking for. And I say this because I think a lot of people like don't realize like traveling also realizes like what kind of traveler are you, like some people travel just to relax, some people travel to explore a new country, a new region, some people travel for certain events like key events like concerts or carnivals or something that happens. So just to kind of like sit back first and figure out like what am I looking for into this travel? And so that's why I say like create that bucket list, because once you have like a list of like countries or cities or states that you think like you want to visit, that can kind of like give you like a map of what where what you want to do. And then depending on that, of course, the big thing, the next factor is money, right? So then
Mm.
establishing like, all right, how are you gonna, budget for this? So, for example, for me, even before I had a career, I used to have like a little budget bucket or a travel bucket, I called it. So every paycheck, I used to put $25, $50 into this bucket so I could have like a pile of money that would focus just on travel. Because what I always say, like, when you get paid, what do? You pay your bills, right? So, sis, you need
Mhm.
to pay yourself too. Like, you need to put some things that are gonna make you happy, that are gonna put you, in your full purpose. Because at the end of the day, like, work can't be it all. Like, paying bills can't be it all. Like, you need something for fun.
Mhm.
And I'm saying, like, if you're just starting, even $10. Like, I remember my first job as a waitress when I was 18, the money that I threw on ex-boyfriends, on the newest shoes, on the newest, like,
Mhm.
things that you did not need. So don't tell me that, when I was 18, I could have taken all that money and put it aside, but I didn't because I didn't know. I didn't think. So I would tell someone who's younger and someone who's just starting, like, figure that out. Figure out your money situation, but pay yourself and then utilize everything that we have on social media platforms, podcasts. I mean, I'm going to throw one in there, this Latina Travels. Like, listen to these,
Mhm.
shows and surround yourself with these communities, follow these individuals. The amount of free information, like, I give out so much free content. It's sometimes I'm just
Mhm.
like, you really just have to look at stuff and you can create your own, like, platform. Like, I give you how much you spend, like in my Egypt reels, I tell you literally how much I spent on everything, who my tour guide was, like what you need to do. And then if you want to invest in something, then buy my travel guide, which is less than 20 bucks. So it's like, I feel like there's so many resources out there that, you also have to do a little bit of your search. And if have your money's meat and you don't want to deal with any of that stuff, there are travel coordinators that literally will plan your trip or
Mhm.
group trips too, which are amazing. Like I love some of my dear friends that are Latinas that own tour companies. Like I don't do that yet, but
Mhm.
I have other ones, and I always shout them out on my social media because I also believe when one of us wins, we're all winning, and there's enough room on the
Mhm.
table to like give everybody a shot. If I can't do something, if and my amiga Maritza, who owns Amigas on Tours, can, I'm gonna get to go, tell people to sign up for her group tours because I know that they're so good. So it's just like little things like that. So I would say, of course, figure out like what kind of traveler you are. One, two, budget, and then three, do your research and utilize free resources on social media.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. You're so right in saying that social media can be sometimes very consuming in a negative way, but in other way like, you literally can just program into it what you want to search for, and especially
Right.
on something like Instagram or TikTok, like, all you have to do is like a few of the same thing, and then it's just a flood that comes through. So it just you again, you guys heard it here first. You got a couple of pointers, you got what it is that you could be doing. And I also think it's important to say that, like, from where you started, as far as like being a
Mhm.
waitress and just being like $10 here, $20 there, like
Mhm.
a lot of people kind of come up with some of they lean on the excuses of like, well, the economy and like, these kinds of things. And while, a lot of that is valid, there's times where we're spending $10 on a coffee like every single day. And like that right there could lead you to a one-way ticket somewhere, like
Mhm.
50, $60 could be around a one-way ticket to, Florida or something like that, depending on when you want to go. And you add a little bit more and bam, you have a trip just flying somewhere round trip for a couple of days. So I think it's important to really acknowledge that and know that it's possible for anyone. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
And I like to wind down a little bit, towards the end of asking, where can we find you? I'm gonna put this information in the show notes for anyone that might miss it, but where can we find you? How can we support you, support what it is that you're doing both in your community in Puerto Rico and with this Latina Travels?
Yeah, so you can definitely find me on my website, thislatinatravels.com, where you can sign up for my free newsletter. So I send out one newsletter a month if I have time. And in that
Mhm.
newsletter, I provide tips and tricks on how you can, travel the world like me. I also always provide like awesome podcasts like yours that I'm on. So information of different, travelers also, and then just like what's going on. So I always give like a kind of a glimpse of like this month I'm doing X, Y, and Z. So that's where I say I give like my cheese man, my tea. So
Mm.
please subscribe to my newsletter. But on all platforms, I'm at this Latina Travel. So you can find me on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram. And I always say my DMs are always open. Sometimes I don't know, not sometimes, I don't know all the answers to everything, but if I don't know,
Mhm.
I try to always connect you with the right individual. But yeah, just follow me, stay connected, and some ways to help me. I do have a shop page, so if you love merchandise with this Latina Travels, you can definitely shop on my website. And I also do some travel guides. So if you check out my website, you'll see guides for Puerto Rico, Ireland, and Egypt.
Wow. So I will definitely put this information in the show notes. Thank you so much for meeting with us today, for, talking to us and just bringing us your insight. And I just hope that we connect again soon.
Yes, definitely. This won't be the last. And you have to let me know when you come visit Puerto Rico. I could give you and your husband a tour.
Yes, I would love that. Oh my god,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.